So it is always cool to see a Mustang in Europe, but especially the special ones. Cool terrain right there. But right here, we have a Bullet Mustang. Always nice to see these. These are more powerful, have a better transmission. This is the Tremec manual. Also, we've got, I think, a Morris Minor convertible. I'm actually pretty impressed by the car lineup here in Prague. These are just awesome. I've driven a few of these. These are very, very nice. Got a Porsche 911 Turbo right there, or Turbo S. Great looking G-Wagon right there. Very nice old W123 Mercedes. We've got another one of those weird little buggies. And then right past it, we have a SRT8 Challenger. Hell yeah. Beautiful Alfa Romeo Stelvio here. They also have just some of the best paint colors. And this green is just so gorgeous. And then, if you like nice green cars, can't not mention this. The latest gen Bentley Continental Flying Spur convertible in this absolutely stunning, not really British racing green, kind of this other, almost army green. With some interesting decor up on the dash. Let's see that up there. And then, on the topic of Bentley, we got here the Bentley Bentayga. I'm curious in the comments, you guys should mention, what do you think of this facelift of the Bentayga? Because I think it was, you know, myself and most other people thought it was a rather ugly car when it came out. The Falcon 9 concept car, whatever it was for it, was pretty much universally hated. But they have done a pretty good job updating it. A very nice G63 G-Wagon here. Definitely some curbing of the wheels, which happens. Awesome looking new Aston Martin, I think the DB12. Another fantastic Audi RS6 wagon. Love seeing these. Very nice to see these older Jag XJ6s out. Always just an incredible silhouette. This here is practically a US spec Chevy Cruze, except it has a weird sticker on the side, a manual, which you did actually get in the US, but it's a hatchback. These are an interesting offering right now. This is a French car, the DS, which is, I'm sure, from the, you know, old Citroen DS, but it's basically a Citroen sub-brand. And they're pretty interesting. This one's a Hungarian-plated 6th rental car. This is the DS4, which is kind of like a crossover hatchback-y thing, but honestly, it looks quite nice. So I was actually in Europe pretty much exactly a year ago, exactly a year ago, and when I flew in, came into Germany, and I actually got to rent one of these Skoda Fabias, which is basically just a Volkswagen Golf, just in a different body, and I was very impressed. I'm actually bummed I never got to do a car review and that I was just too busy seeing stuff. But dual clutch transmission, quite fast in the Autobahn, great time. And this one looks really great as a wagon with the gray. Yet another incredible Porsche color on this Macan. Not sure the name of it, but I've definitely seen that before though. Looks great. Right here is another gorgeous orange German car. The W123 manual, so probably like a 240D or something like that. Coupe, which the coupes are definitely one of the less common built ones of these. The W123 is by far one of my favorite cars ever built, and this one is just absolutely gorgeous. This is a bit interesting. These have become pretty common pretty quickly, but I'm still so impressed that they actually added a Mazda-built straight six to their lineup. So I actually did visit Prague about 2 years ago in the winter, and it was a fairly short visit, but it's funny, me being a car guy, one of the things I remember most distinctly is the area we parked kind of in the center. I remember this really, really nice red Ford Mustang, and there's been a bunch of cool ones since then. We've got here yet another interesting Chevy for the European market. I don't know if this one's actually a Cruze though. Actually it is, which is surprising. And a wagon. Then over here we get one of the many weird French cars, the Peugeot 206cc, which is a hardtop convertible, little like econo box, kind of odd to say the least. Yet another gorgeous green color in this BMW. These are always an interesting sight to see. The Audi A2, which was a very odd offering from Audi. It was actually all aluminum. One of their first all aluminum cars pretty much ever. Then we got this odd thing, doing some kind of scanning of something. Got here the BMW X6 M50D. Definitely a submodel we would never have gotten in the US. The performance diesel market here is pretty big, but almost non-existent ever in the US. This here is the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, which over here was rebadged as a Peugeot, and this here is a Citroen. Slightly different in the US, but much more common than they ever were in the US. Check out this weird little microcar. It's a little one-person, most likely like a made-in-China type thing. It looks almost like the Piaggio logo, but I don't think it actually is. But this thing is so freaking tiny. It's like as small as a motorcycle. Fascinating. So many of these bizarre buggy things. And the wheels actually look like they have almost like Mercedes hubcaps on them. Very strange. And a little bit of a trend in this video. We've got a new Bentley Continental GT again, and this is the GT Speed, the most powerful version of the W12, and probably the last one now, unfortunately. Good looking car. We got a Panamera GTS over there too. And that one's cool because that has the split open fold out wing. One of the coolest Panamera features. Now looking at what's next to this actually makes sense why there's so many fancy cars here. We got AP, Saint Laurent, Louis Vuitton, and of course with that we have yet another Bentley. This is a pre-facelift Bentayga. And then right here we've got, I think this is a Ghibli. It's always so hard to tell which one it is, the Ghibli or the Quattroporte, until you get to the side. Ghibli. Then we got the AMG GT, I'm not sure which version it is. If there's no badges, it's probably the base 43. Then we got a Panamera Turbo, also with the split out opening wing. A green G-Wagon, Taycan, and another older green Skoda, which this is really what it's all about here in the Czech Republic. This is their car. Skoda is basically like the main car brand of this nation. These days it's under the Volkswagen Group like literally every other thing in the world. But always nice to see these, and they are really, truly common here. And really lovely. I'm a big Skoda fan. You know, if you give me the option to get a Volkswagen or get a Skoda, I'm definitely picking Skoda probably 9 times out of 10. Got the slightly lame GLE 53 AMG. And then over here, we have what, the 4th Bentley Bentayga so far of this video? And what is this past it? Ford Escort maybe? Yeah, I think like a Ford Escort wagon, also in green. And this is quite surprising. I was actually about to point out that this is actually an Opel over here in Europe, and it's actually a Buick in the US. But it is actually a Buick here. Which is incredibly strange. I didn't think they brought like any Buicks over to Europe. It was all rebranded as Opel. Looks like another baby AMG. So like many places, one of the most common affluent cars here is of course the G-Wagon. This one has the updated grille, even though this is probably like the early one. But it's always kind of funny seeing just how common and popular they are. They are a pretty good choice though, and I'm definitely a big fan. And the cool cars continue. Got here a Cayenne, I'm gonna say probably Turbo GTS. Well, it's D-badge, I don't quite know. But over here, got a Rolls-Royce Ghost. Always such gorgeous cars. The first time I ever drove one of these, believe it or not, I actually stalled it out, which is really weird because it's an automatic transmission. But given that it's also a BMW underneath, it had some bizarre transmission issue and literally stalled out the engine from putting in gear. Very weird. Although I failed to actually film them earlier, this is like the 3rd or 4th M3 and M4 I've actually seen driving around. All of the same generation too. They're definitely a popular car. And we got here actually a very interesting vehicle. This here is the Chrysler Crossfire SRT6, the only time they ever had an SRT6. Which, if you know the history behind this, this is actually a Mercedes SLK underneath, hence 6 for the Mercedes 6-cylinder. But these are very rare sighting, and especially rare in Europe. Pretty good lineup of cars here, and some kind of nutcase screaming over there. But this here is an S63 AMG, and I believe this is another Audi RS6. This one of the previous generation. And then another S-Class, and a Cayenne. It's built pretty close to here. I mean, sort of. Built over in Slovakia. This is kind of a peculiar car, or I guess truck in front of me. It looks sort of like a Honda Ridgeline, but it's not. I guess this is the SsangYong Musso Grand. I've probably seen one of these before, but not that I can recollect. I'm honest, I gotta look this thing up. I'm curious if this is the same type of thing where it's actually all unibody, or if this is in fact a body and frame truck, or perhaps even some kind of combo. Manual, that's kind of cool. And if you guys don't know, SsangYong is one of the other Korean automakers. Also very, very large company, but they've never ever once sold in the US. But kind of an interesting vehicle. And of course, like every vehicle here in Prague, it's green. I have been seeing tons of these today. The Skoda Yeti, which is sort of like a Fiat Panda in spirit. I think they're a little bit bigger and a little bit tougher and more 4x4-esque. But these are just very fun vehicles. And of course, this is a product of the Czech Republic, so gotta point that out. Also, very fun color. I've always kind of liked this gold brownish color on cars. Very classy. This car here is a perfect example of Skoda rebranding. A lot of the Skodas actually do look fairly separate from the Volkswagens they're often based on, but this one is a Skoda Citigo, and this is 100% so obviously just the Volkswagen up. I do think it's a good looking car though, and I don't know if they still make these or make them in gas, but this is the little electric one, which, although I'm not a big fan of EVs, the small EV city cars are actually fairly logical. A lot of times coming to other nations, it's just interesting to see the different names for the same cars you see elsewhere. So this here in the US is the Mitsubishi Mirage, but here it's the Mitsubishi Space Star, which is a really interesting and fun name. Then over here, I have to point this out. This is to me one of my favorite Skodas ever, the Skoda Superb, and also this one's a 4x4, which I think is incredibly cool. I actually later need to look this up and see the true lineage of this thing, because it's a very large sedan. And I'm actually curious if this has any roots with things like the Audi A8 and all that, and Bentley and the Volkswagen Phaeton and all that stuff, because it's definitely about that size. But yeah, this thing is just the coolest. I think I remember having one of these as a taxi, like, I don't know, 15 plus years ago on one of my first trips over to Europe. But I would love to have one of these someday. I mean, just look at the size of this thing. Some interesting leaf decorations on this V8 Jeep too. And since I just mentioned the Skoda Citigo, I actually completely forgot that they also rebranded it as the Seat, actually now I'm forgetting the name of this model. Seat something or other. Seat Me. Okay, that's not a very fun name. But anyways, interesting car though. And once again, so much of the naming here in Europe is just super goofy in my opinion. This here is the Volkswagen Marco Polo, which is their, I think it's the V-Class van, another van we don't get in the US. And this is the Westfalia camper version. The Volkswagen version of their new camper vans is called the Volkswagen California, which is also less goofy, but also kind of interesting nonetheless. You know, I usually love the look of these little Alfa Romeos, but this one looks very sad and honestly a bit cross-eyed. Poor thing. Definitely seen better days. And here, another similar name to the Space Star, the Space Tourer. They like their space names here, which I can't blame them. That's a pretty fun naming structure. This here's also a car you don't see too often in Europe. The Chevy Traverse, and the RS package too. Kind of weird always seeing very much American cars with Euro plates, especially like when they're kind of normal-ish American cars. Like, it's one thing to see like a Mustang over here, because like those are special, but just a Traverse, and like seemingly everywhere else in Europe, another Ukrainian plated vehicle. This one's a pretty nice Volkswagen Transporter. And then check this out, genuine California plates. Now that brings me back home. So weird always seeing American plates overseas. Far from the first time I've seen this though, I have seen quite a few American plates over here in Europe. And to continue the spotting of very strange looking Chevrolet vehicles over here in Europe, we have this thing, which I'm guessing is the Chevy Lacetti. And this is just such an obviously not American spec car. Like, it's hard to put it into words, but just everything about this silhouette is just obviously not America. Yep, Chevrolet Lacetti. And this one also has that same Z thing on it. So once again, if you guys know what that is, I'd be curious. I am kind of wondering if it's like a marking that you're part of the National Guard or something of that variety. I mean, the interior has some kind of Chevy-ish plastics, although once again, still looks much more like an Opel. Alright, so I think that's gonna be it for the video. Hope you guys have liked all the cool cars today. I've actually been pretty impressed by the car lineup here. Tons of Bentleys and a ton of green cars too. I've noticed it's like a real trend here. But anyways, it's time for me to go continue on my journey, drive to, I think, Germany tonight, and then film many more videos just like this for you guys. So do make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys all in the next video.